Chapter 9. What Dwells in Your Heart. Retest. Suddenly, there was a loud crash down the hallway. Mew smirked and gazed over his shoulder.
Ah, so the main event has started.
What was she talking about?
Never thought I'd say this, but Sayhara is actually pretty punctual.
Sayhara? Shuichi? Shin?
What the hell do you mean? Kaito growled. Tell me, what was that sound? And what about Sayhara?
You see, I made him a little promise. If he let me beat you to death, then I'd let him do whatever he wanted to Kokichi.
No. There was another smash. He turned to run towards it, but Mew placed her foot in front of his.
Not so fast!
She leapt at him. He ducked, and she went flying over. She quickly regained her footing, however, and stood in his way.
Move aside!
He shouted.
You realize this is all your fault.
Mew brandished her knives.
If you'd been able to kill me before, then we wouldn't be in this situation now.
He hated that she was right. Kokichi dodged yet another swing from Shin's massive hammer. Seriously, that thing was as big as his head. He stumbled back until his back hit the window.
Thanks, by the way.
Shin lifted the hammer into the air with a crazed grin.
Shuichi's got himself a new treasure. Wouldn't have happened if it weren't for you. And it's seriously an awesome piece of treasure. Awesome enough to fill the emptiness inside.
Without anything else to do, Kokichi chucked his phone at him. He didn't even check to see where it had hit. He just ran.
You idiot! You just threw your stupid phone!
He growled at him. He could hear Shin shouting something, but he was too far away to discern words. The small boy dashed into the cooking classroom. He shut and locked the door, even though he knew it wouldn't do any good. Shin still managed to get in, with heavy boxes and chairs stacked against the door. Trying to control his breathing, he hid behind a kitchen island. All too soon, he heard the wood splinter and shatter into pieces.
Oh my, where's your precious Momota?
Shin mocked.
He's too busy to help you now. Too busy being killed by Mew.
He ducked out of the way, just as the hammer came down, right where his head had been. He swung several more times at him, each time coming too close for comfort.
Nobody's coming to rescue you, no matter how much you yell, and yell, and yell, and yell. No one watching, no one there, no one here, and right here. And now, there's no one to save you.
Kokichi trembled behind one of the only islands left. He clutched the fire extinguisher in his hands.
I hope you and Momota are happy on the other side.
Now. He had to do it now. The small boy leapt up and aimed the end of the nozzle at Shin's face. He grit his teeth and pressed the trigger. The foam went right into the assassin's eyes. It gave him just enough time to begin running again.
The first time I saw you, I could tell you were so full of crap.
Mew sneered as she swiped and stabbed at him.
Why would you even bother joining Class Black? You're such a friggin' disgrace. You're so determined to protect Kokichi, but you don't even care about him. It's just camouflage behind the fact that you can't kill. Talk about a raw deal for him.
Keep your mind empty. Don't think. Just move.
So much for all that infamous Momota of the East crap. Does that mean I'll be deemed the most powerful after I kill ya?
Their knives clashed as his phone buzzed. Kokichi. He could be trying to call for help. The distraction was enough for Mew to be able to wrap her arm around his neck, cutting off his air. As he struggles, his phone fell out of his pocket, and the blonde-haired assassin crushed it with her heel. Darkness began to swirl on the edge of his vision. His ears started to ring. He kicked his leg out in front of him, slamming his heel on the floor. There was a small noise that let him know it was out. With a growl, he elbowed her in the gut and struck her leg with the heel of his shoe, where a combat taser was hidden. It wouldn't knock her out, but it would stun her for long enough for him to just get moving. Kokichi hid inside the boys' bathroom. Shin found him and his hiding spot easily, so he was forced to keep running.
Where are you, Kokichi? Give me a sign!
Kaito pleaded as he ran. He found the smashed remains of several doors and rooms. He ran into some sort of overhead walkway.
Maybe I can spot him from here.
He squinted his eyes, trying to see past his reflection. It was while doing this that he saw Mew come up from behind him. There wasn't any time to react before she pushed him into the window. The frame popped out, almost like it was meant to. Kaito didn't remember hitting the ground.
What do I do?
He couldn't keep running forever. He was quickly tiring himself out.
Where should I hide? Oh, I hope Kaito's all right.
The small boy whipped around a corner and was horrified to see the remains of a cell phone lying on the ground.
Kaito. No, he had to be okay.
Once more, he moved out of the way just as the hammer came down where he had been previously. Seriously, this was getting ridiculous. How was this guy finding him?
Aw, but it's no fun when you dodge it.
Shin cackled. He noticed the remains clutched in his hand.
Oh, is that Momota's? So I guess it's already over. Do you see his corpse, huh?
Kokichi didn't respond, only scrambling to his feet and continuing to sprint.
You're still gonna run?
Of course he was still going to run. What did he think? He was just going to lay down and die? He tried every door he came across. Every single one seemed to be locked. All except for the audio-visual room. It was a shit place to hide, but it was better than nothing at this point. He ducked inside and managed to get down to the first row of chairs before Shin burst his way into the door again.
How many times I gotta tell ya? There's nowhere different for you to run.
This time, as he rapidly swung his hammer towards him, he wasn't able to dodge it in time. It connected with his stomach and sent him flying into one of the rows. He coughed and clutched at the area. Definitely something broken, or at least seriously bruised there.
I'm impressed you've stayed alive this long. I'll reward you by putting you down in one fell swoop.
But I won't die!
Kokichi sat up and glared at the assassin.
I promised Kaito that I'd graduate, no matter what!
Wake up, man. Momota's dead.
Kaito won't die either. He'd never die in a game like this.
Your time's up.
Shin raised the hammer above his head. Kokichi braced himself and prepared to dodge. Then, the projector light turned on. For a moment, Shin just froze, his eyes wide. Then, he let out a scream and collapsed onto the ground.
Kaito!
Kokichi stood up and turned around with relief in his bones. But when he saw who it was, that relief turned to terror.
Hurry, Kaito! There's no time!
His aunt grabs his wrist and runs with him. Where are you taking me?
We're leaving this village, getting away from this legacy of murder, to the world of broad daylight.
World of broad daylight? What does that mean?
It should have never taken me so long to get you out of here. It's what my sister wanted me to do, but I was always too weak to make up my mind.
My mom wanted this?
It's all my fault. I was her sister, and I ran from the Momota legacy. She had to bear the burden on her own. She had no choice but to fight.
Care to tell me where you're going?
His grandmother's voice was the last he remembered of that day. Until now, he guessed. Apparently, there was more. More that his aunt had told him.
Forget it all. You have to. None of this is your fault. Even if you don't remember us, we'll still be with you, watching from the shrine.
It's been you, all this time. You've been the one calling out to me. Arms locked around his waist, thin and feminine. You've been protecting me. He gently unclasped those fragile-looking arms. Thank you. But it's okay. I'll be all right.
Kaito.
I have someone of my own to protect. So from now on, I'll make my own decisions. He could sense the figure behind him nodding and beginning to move away. I'll join you someday. So please, wait there for me! Goodbye, Mother. It was a tree that stopped his fall, that cushioned the blow, that stopped him from dying. Kaito sat up with a wince. Damn, that hurt. He was thoroughly soaked from the rain, and cold as hell. Bruises covered his arms and legs. He hissed as he stood up. But even then, he never felt stronger. He began stumbling forward, then jogging, then running, then full-on sprinting. Kokichi, hang on. He didn't know if he'd be able to hang on much longer. His arms, legs, and chest were cut to hell, blood trailing down his pale skin and soaking into his clothes. His brain screamed at him to get up and keep running. However, his limbs wouldn't move. He was so tired. Tired. And hurt. And scared.
All right, come on now.
Mew lazily twirled her knife in her hand.
You gotta try harder than this to get away. Unless you want me to kill ya.
She smirked devilishly.
Geez, what's up with you? Don't tell me a few cuts is all it takes to squash that positivity. I guess your guardian angel Kaito's early death really took a toll on you, huh?
He knew she was saying it just to get a reaction out of him. Even if he wasn't in control of his body, he wouldn't give it to her. She walked forward and kicked the remains of the phone out of his hand. She reached out and picked him up by his scarf.
Hey, would it make you feel better if I killed you the same way I killed him?
He was slammed into a window, the breath getting knocked out of him.
Spoiler alert, I tossed him out the window, and he went splat.
She twisted her hold so the scarf tightened around his neck. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't breathe. But still, his body wouldn't respond to him.
Way too easy, right? It's his own fault for being such an idiot. He wouldn't have even had to die if he hadn't bothered protecting you.
The scarf tightened even more.
And I think it's time to complete this job.
A knife came sailing out of nowhere, embedding itself in her hand. Mew had Kokichi pressed up against a window, slowly choking him with his checkered scarf. Kaito threw his knife with pinpoint accuracy, like he'd always been taught. The moment the blade pierced her hand, she let go, and the smaller boy collapsed in a heap on the ground. Mew's head snapped in her direction, screaming in both pain and frustration as she ripped the knife out of her hand. She pulled a small handgun out of her boot. Dodging the bullets proved to be simple enough. He grabbed her arm and flipped her onto her back. You almost made it, Mew, but you lose, he growled. There was a snap. As her arm broke, he forced her onto her stomach, with her arms pinned behind her.
Then kill me, she sneered. Go on and try. We both know you can't do it.
Wrong. I can kill now. Kaito smiled, wrapping a hand around her neck. But that doesn't mean I'm going to. He tightened his hold until he felt her body go limp. Then he let go and took a few steps back. The taller boy slumped down against the wall, breathing hard. He looked over at Kokichi, who was staring at him with a shocked and relieved expression. The smaller boy was absolutely covered in wounds, probably from Mew's knife. Are you okay? He asked. Kokichi's deep purple eyes began filling with tears. He suddenly threw his arms around the taller boy with a sob. Kaito! His little, battered body began to tremble. Kaito! Kaito! It took a second for him to realize that he was crying. I thought they killed you, and you died because of me, and that I'd never see you again. Kaito held him close, letting him feel his heartbeat while gently rubbing circles into his back. It was the first time He'd seen Kokichi cry. Like, actually cry. Sobs and shakes, and sniffles and all. After the small boy calmed down enough to be able to move, the two of them stumbled outside. The rain stopped. Kokichi looked tiredly up at the sky. We must be in the eye of the typhoon. Kaito kept his arm slung around his shoulder, holding him close by his side. As he looked up at the moon, he couldn't help but say, "It wasn't a curse."
Huh?
For most of my life now, I felt like I was suffocating, trapped beneath the wishes of the dead. Like it was a burden, preventing me from living my own life. But I realized I was wrong. All this time, I was actually being protected. He turned and cupped the smaller boy's cheeks. Kokichi, it's thanks to you that I realized that. I wouldn't have without you. He watched that pale skin give way to bright red as he smiled softly. No matter what, it's good to be alive.
Yeah. You've all been very courageous in your efforts. It may seem opposite to the rest of the world, but the truth is quite apparent to me, and I commend you. Leave the rest to me, and sleep well. You deserve the respect.